Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today for our BPM.com Thought Leadership Series. Today's topic, we're going to discuss how dynamic BPM combined with better analytics and big data can lead to better business decisions. My name is David Meny. I'm the Group Product Marketing Manager for IIG, and joining me is Dan Cerulli.
Hey everyone, my name is Dan Cerulli, and as you see, I am a Group Product Manager and I work on a product set called XCP.
Thanks, Dan. And today, our goal is to really break this presentation up into three core sections. First, we're going to talk about productivity and how increasing productivity, really making it easy to capture, model, and refine user experiences and access these from anywhere really helps increase information worker productivity. And we're also going to show you a demo. Dan's going to be gracious enough to show us how the Documentum XCP product can actually help increase productivity. And so what we're going to do is quick start off with just some of the factors or forces, I guess, that you should keep in mind when we talk about information productivity. The cost of reducing your productivity can be very vast. We know that there's been a lot of studies. IDC just did a recent study in June 2012 that said that lost productivity costs around $19,000 per information worker per year, which actually equates to about 21% of an organization's time. And the reason for this productivity loss, is largely due to time spent searching for information. So the fact that this information isn't presented to me in the right context means I got to go find it. It may not be in a single system. It may be scattered throughout the organization in a different set of systems, all with different search interfaces. And about 25% of that lost productivity is largely spent searching for content. And this equates to about 6 to 10 hours a week for every information worker, which is just a significant amount of time lost because of things that can be easily corrected with the right user experience and the right application. So let's talk about the value of dynamic BPM. What we see here is basically what we call the three main priorities or three main vectors of productivity. The first being we want to build solutions that business users will love, that are easy to use, that are easy to keep them productive. The second, we want to focus on intelligence. How do we actually drive better business decisions and outcomes? This is largely due to leveraging a variety of analytics sources, being able to surface charts and reports and very visual, interactive aids to really help people understand how the system's performing and make better decisions. And finally, agility. You can really achieve getting a solution up and running quickly, but you also need to be able to evolve that over time as your requirements change. Those are the three main value propositions that dynamic BPM can provide. What we're going to do in this first section is really zoom into the productivity piece. And for productivity, we're talking about improving the productivity of business end users in this particular section. And one of the main reasons or the main ways you can do that is by having very personalized and role-based access to information. You can see here is an example of sort of a mashup of information. We have visualized various analytics and provided those inline in the application. We can see recent documents that might be relevant to this particular user, recent customers they may have interacted with. So presenting all this information in context in a single interface is really important and really critical to improving productivity. Having rich and flexible layouts. As we know, our requirements for an application may change, even during the design cycle, and certainly after that application's gone into production. There are new regulations, there are new markets that need to be addressed. You might have a merger or an acquisition that causes you to bring together multiple applications into one. Whatever the driving force is, having the ability to quickly and easily change how the application looks, what information is being presented, what systems you're integrating with, very key hallmark to increasing productivity. And again, having all that information in context. We mentioned that bringing together a variety of different enterprise information sources into a single screen is important. But it's also important to minimize those mouse clicks. We can see here we have the ability to preview a document, in this case a driver's license, Lisa's driver's license. Simply by clicking on the document, we have the ability to preview that document in line within the application without having a window popping up, without having to change to another application. It's all there at our fingertips. That's what we talk about, bringing all that together in context. And then in terms of really finding information, it's not just search. It's not just typing in a keyword and full text indexing and finding things with that word in it. It's actually being able to be more intelligent around the content, being able to understand the meaning of what's in the document, and being able to find, who authored that content. Is there a subject matter expert that can help me? Is this concept present in the document? Are certain keywords present in the document? This is what we call content analytics, and this is really taking search to the next level. We also have the ability to have facets, so it's really easy for us to navigate that result set, really zoom in to exactly what it is we're looking for very quickly and easily, for example, by the type of the document or who authored the document, things of that nature. So all this information coming together in context is really what we're trying to achieve with a dynamic business process application. So process is obviously central. Modeling that business process is key. But the connection with content is also very, very important. That as the process changes, maybe the rules around the content, the security around the content, or even what information we're drawing from may change. We need to collaborate with individuals throughout the process. We may need to add various policies to the information. For example, maybe we want to retain it for a certain period of time for a legal or a compliance audit requirement. We also need a complete audit trail of all the people involved in the decision making. And having that all together, kind of like an electronic manila folder, is really what we achieve with these dynamic BPM applications. So let's take a look at another productivity enhancement here, which is really using the business process in a dynamic way to drive how information is shared between information workers. So, for example, we can actually grab information from a variety of different enterprise sources. You can see here we're getting customer data from our CRM system. We're able to also grab documents that are coming in from scanners or fax machines and be able to digitize those paper documents, extract meaning out of them with OCR technology, and then merge that together into that information packet we talked about earlier. We create a new customer record, and now we can, if we want, we can share any communications that we have with our customer directly in an automated way. We can generate those customer communications. We can send them an email. We can send them a text message. We can do this in a variety of different channels. And we can also use, sync and share technology. This is an example of EMC simplicity being driven from a business process. So we can actually move a file from Documentum to an external collaborative share that's synchronized with any of their mobile devices. So again, business process is a key enabler here around collaboration. We talked about that full customer visibility, but making sure that that's ultimately business friendly is also very important. I mean, end users, especially in this case, an insurance agent, needs to know stuff that's very relevant to their day. They don't need to be going through a complex interface. They need something very much tailored to optimize to their specific work function. If a supervisor is logging into the system to see how all the insurance workers are, handling their variety of cases, they may want more of a dashboard view, showing them the statistics, showing them where the information is coming from, not necessarily this specific view that the insurance worker will have. So these role-based views, very important to the success and productivity of each worker. And then the ability to work from anywhere. Documentum XCP supports the ability to access these applications from an iPad. So for example, I can have all these role-based logins, but I can do this from my iPad as well. I can do this in a variety of form factors. And again, we can even tailor the user experience to be optimized to that device. So you can see here, the look and feel much more button-oriented, icon-oriented. We've got mashups with Google Maps, kind of a rich interface for the iPad because we have those. We have the ability to geotag. We have the ability to leverage location services, to leverage photos. This is really what the devices are good for, and we need to make sure that the interface for our business application is optimized to that form factor. So just as a quick customer example, Generally Hellas is an insurance company that has really embraced this notion of trying to optimize the interface to not only gain productivity for their users, but also improve their customer visibility. And they had a significant amount of manual effort involved in scanning and sorting, distributing various insurance claims throughout the business. And the main reason for the manual effort is not all that information was accessible in a single location. So they also had a large cost and overhead involved in processing these insurance claims because there was a lot of paper chasing. There was a lot of people chasing. And, it just really wasn't maximizing the productivity of their agents. After deploying a dynamic business application based on Documentum XCP, they were able to reduce their paper consumption by up to 30%. And they were able to do that by actually adding on a scanning capability provided by EMC Captiva that really automated the creation of new cases, new insurance claims for them. And they are also able to now drop the time it takes to issue a new policy by up to 70%. So now they're doing something in 2 to 3 days, which used to take them, well over a week to do. So there's a lot of great customer visibility improvements as well as productivity improvements that they've been able to get. And during this entire time, they've been able to stay in government compliance with their solution as well. So they have a full audit trail around all activity taking place in the system, which is really important in heavily regulated industries such as insurance. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition over to Dan to show you a demo of our product and how it can actually help improve productivity.
Thanks, David. And to do this, we're going to look at an investigative case management application that starts with a worker being productive in the field. And the first thing you'll notice about this demo is that it starts on an iPad. And what we've got here is investigative case management. So you've got a police officer who has been called to the scene of an accident. And we're increasing his productivity right away. Instead of taking notes in a notebook, he's opening up his iPad and he's looking at an application that allows him to create new cases. And he can see all kinds of information on his home screen. He can see what's going on in the system, where there have been incidents right now. What's important for him is probably the list of tasks that he needs to work on, and he can see any pending documents. So he's clicked on the new incident, and he quickly sees a hierarchy of the different types of incidents that they see. And they're quickly broken down. Is this a person, property, or vehicle? It's a road traffic accident without fatality. He's given some context-sensitive information in the right. So is that the right code? Is this what happened? Yes. If he doesn't want to go through through that hierarchy, he can also go ahead and just do a search on the type of accident it is. So has a couple of different ways that he can find this information. But in any case, when he finds the type of case, he clicks to proceed. And now he's going to provide some basic information about where and when this incident occurred. So the system has auto-populated a date for him. And we're going to show an integration with external systems, something, as David Menny was pointed out, is so important. Here he's typing in a license plate. And as he's typing in that license plate, the system is doing an external lookup to, first of all, validate that this is a valid license plate, and that check marks to the right indicates that it is. And second, it automatically, from a database, looked up the insurance company for that plate, which is in Italy held in a database. So you're seeing there one of these very powerful things, which is integrating with an external system on the fly in order to provide information. And now you see another integration, this one with Google Maps. As the police officer types in the location that this accident occurred, you'll see a Google map that is dynamically updating and showing, is this the right place? This is the kind of user experience that makes a user want to use an application. And when you're talking about an enterprise application, happy users are actually more likely to use an application. People who are satisfied with software are more likely to use it. You're more likely to see successful implementations. And it's providing information like this in context that's so useful. So a police officer is not going to write a whole report on the scene. They'll do that back at the station. But here he's going to quickly write just a sentence or two about what he's seen here at the scene, enough to get him going for his report later on. So you'll see him type in some information here. And when he's done with that, he will click that record incident button. He's done with that, and now he'll click that record incident button. And of course, this is all using very native feeling user interface. So the case has now been created in the system, and in the system reports, I can see at the top there's a complete case details. It's actually created a task for him to go complete those details later on. Now, what's important here is that we did enhance his productivity. The police officer was able to do this at the scene, and at the scene, he's able to gather some more information. He took some photos with his iPad, and he can quickly email those into the system. So you'll see him select them on his iPad and email these in. The system is going to automatically attach these to the case that he just created. So this is a huge productivity increaser. And the amount of time it's taken him to not just jot notes down at the scene. In the time that in the past he would have jotted notes down, the case has been created in the system. He's introduced evidence into that case, and it's awaiting him. So the police officer will then go back to the office, and he's going to log into this same investigative case management application, this time from his desktop computer. And as you'll see, he's got that same application. And he can see his list of tasks, one of which is to complete the case details. So it's going to helping him in context here. And he's going to click in there, and it's going to ask him to do that. Just put in all the details of the case. Here we'll see a different view of the case, and he's got information that he entered at the scene there. But he can also start to set up his investigation, create a checklist of things that have to happen before he's done. He can look at the case file that was created. So opening up that case file, he can see several things. You can see the data that he entered at the scene, but those photos that he emailed in were automatically attached to the case file. He can look at those there, see them in sight. Very powerful for the user to be able to look at these things while they're looking at the case information, and can even add comments right on top of the file. And you'll see that he'll put this on the roundabout, and it's going to attach that comment in a particular place. So you can have multiple comments, and people can interact on these as well. The system auto-generated an incident report, and this is just a nicely formatted PDF that can be used to convey information about the incident report. So he's not having to go generate those. Now, another thing that David Meny talked about was viewing information in context. Now, he took these photos with his iPad, and the iPad, of course, has a GPS in it and puts geotags on every photo that it takes. So here we see a case where we've got a screen that will show all the photos associated with the case, along with their location superimposed on a map. So this is a very powerful tool that's all about giving very good information to anyone who's looking at this case in context. What we're seeing right here is incredibly rich. So he can look at all the files associated with the case. Of course, he can add files to a case if he'd like to. In this case, he's done a little bit of investigation. He's decided what needs to happen. Well, we do need to talk to the Milano Fire Service to complete this investigation. So he's going to add a checklist. This checklist is actually going to be used later on to allow him to complete the case. He's categorizing this, and he wants to notify the insurance companies. And this is going to start a process that will auto-generate correspondence to the insurance companies. And then you see the case does note, yes, insurance has been notified. So he's completed this aspect of the case. It's moved the case on to a further point in the process where it's now waiting for reports, and I can see that top task. Now, we just want to go what the insurance company is going to see. He clicked that in notify insurance companies, and as we look at the insurance company's emails, this is showing how we sent a report out to each insurance company. In this case, it was the first driver who uses Zurich as their insurance company, and that incident report, it was automatically generated. This was using our Doc Sciences product to create a branded piece of correspondence that has data from the case. This is going to be automatically generated and sent out to the insurance companies. It's also going to be introduced to the case itself. So what we saw there was really a lot of productivity enhancements. We saw the officer able to start entering the data about the case right there at the scene on an iPad, on a mobile device. We saw him introducing evidence into that case he just created via the camera on the iPad. And then we saw information being used in a lot of great ways. Logging into the same application from his desktop computer, he saw information in situ. He saw geotagged photos that were superimposed on a map. We saw integrations with external systems, all of which served to make that the information worker, who in this case happens to be a police officer, more productive at that investigative case management job.
That's really fascinating, Dan. I really appreciate you taking us through, and looks like a pretty slick application there, very useful. I'm sure a lot of law enforcement agencies could really get a lot of benefit out of that. We're going to continue our conversation around how to improve intelligence, specifically in a dynamic business process application. To set things up, I thought I'd go through a couple of slides, really showcasing what the cost of making poor decisions can be to a business. And this is really driving at the need for why increasing your intelligence is so critical. A recent study from the Business Value Council for Information Advantage said that 80% of business leaders make major decisions with incomplete or mistrusted information. That's actually pretty scary statistic, but probably fairly true. And we'll see some evidence here around why these types of decisions are being made. So the first major reason is around a lack of context. A really good example, if you remember back in May 2010, I think we can all remember this date fairly well, the whole notion of this flash crash, where the market lost about $900 billion in equity in less than 20 minutes. And a single trader executed a large volume order, basically trying to mitigate risk, and he sold 35,000 contracts in about 7 minutes, which was about a $4.1 billion trade. But what was the information needed to justify that decision? And if he had a bit more context, probably would have prevented this from happening and seeing the secondary effects of what may have occurred there. So there is, again, a lack of context can lead to some really poor decision making. The second area is around a lack of perspective. And this is where if you have poor process automation, losing documents can really, increase your delays, drive risky system workarounds. A good example here, robo-signers, which have been used to approve some very risky loans without any notion of the consequences around those loans. And because of that, we're seeing banks exposing themselves up to $2 billion a month in losses from a lot of this type of activity. So you can see here, lots of statistics. We're still reeling from the effects of this in 2012 today. So lack of perspective, another major reason for poor decision making. And the final one is around a lack of insight. Good example here, there's a Medicare fraud example in Miami. Miami's average cost for Medicare are running around just shy of $12,000 every 2 months for their critical illness patients. So here we have, this is according to a new Health and Human Services report, that's 32 times the national average of about $378. So, big instances of, lack of insight of the scope of these types of problems. Cost to Medicare between $11 billion and $60 billion a year because of duplicate services, fraudulent services, all kinds of things happening that could have been tracked better with much better insight. Yeah,
David, I think a lot of people tend to focus on making decisions quickly. And in mortgages, how quickly can we process a loan application without realizing that what's really important is, yes, you do have to make those quickly, but making the wrong decision is so much more costly than making a decision slowly. And so you do want to keep people productive, but you got to make sure that they've got the right information to make those decisions.
Yeah, that's an incredibly good point, Dan. I mean, nowhere do you see this actually more than in the mortgage business, where the cost of one bad loan can actually undo the profits of up to 10 good loans.
Exactly right.
So all you need is one mistake, and you can wipe out the profits from, I don't know, a week's worth of work. So it's really, it's really critical, and I'm glad you brought that point up. It's worth reinforcing. So again, just to level set here, we talked in our last section around productivity and need to really build solutions that business users will love, that they can access from a variety of different form factors and devices. We're going to zoom in this section around intelligence. How do we actually drive these better business decisions and outcomes? And so what is intelligence? Well, the first piece is really around context. We really need to understand what information we have and what that information does in order to make an optimal business decision. So, for example, here we have an example of where search is really relevant. If we can't find information quickly and we don't have the context of where that information came from, we're really not doing anything incredibly intelligent. So really enriching that information, being able to have the information come to us instead of us always going out to find it, being, understanding the content, but also the context of that content is very, very key. The second area is around perspective, and it really is important to get a variety of points of view that can really inform your decision. Getting rid of those information silos is really key. A recent Accenture study found that only 16% of content is posted to a location within the enterprise where it can actually be accessed by other information workers. Again, lots of information within the enterprise, but 84% of it is in information silos. So we need to really expand our reach to get a wider perspective of what's available within our enterprise. The third area of intelligence is really around insight, and this is around understanding the big picture, being able to explain, to describe, and increasingly to be able to predict, what the outcome might be in a particular case based on the information we have available. And ultimately, this is all designed to drive towards that optimal decision. So that optimal decision, as Dan pointed out earlier, it needs to be quick, but it also needs to be informed. So fewer errors, making sure we can justify the decision that was made. These are all key ingredients to intelligent decision making.
And I think you just hit some great points there, David. Getting that stuff, getting that information from wherever it is in the organization. There's very rarely are you making a decision where all the information you need is in one system. And if you can't get the information from all the systems that you need it from, then you're in grave danger of making that wrong decision.
Yeah, excellent point. So let's take a look at how we can actually deliver. So now that we've decided or understood what intelligence is, how do we actually deliver that intelligence? Well, the key piece around context is really metadata discovery. So being able to understand, through text mining, through content analytics, through various concept-based searching, what does that document or that content actually contain? And let's extract some relevant metadata from that so that it's actually easy to search. Better than just extracting metadata in the document, maybe we can actually, make some intelligent decisions. For example, if I find a social security number in the document, maybe I have to redact it or make sure that other users can't see it because it's a security violation in that case. Or maybe I have to change the security rights around that particular field in the document so that it can't be edited or changed or copied or pasted. Stuff like that. It's much more sophisticated than just keyword searching. Perspective, here we need to be able to search not only sources within our enterprise, but external information sources as well. There's a wealth of information in a variety of places today throughout the internet, and being able to pull on that, draw on that, and allow it to influence our decision making. Lots of public databases as well that we may want to leverage. So perspective and expanding our reach is really key. In terms of insight, visualization and dashboards are big. Taking the analytics we collect around a business process, the analytics we collect around the content, being able to visualize that in charts and reports and embed those anywhere within our application is very, very key. Also alerting people to critical events. For example, if there's a key performance indicator or a particular threshold that we don't want to exceed, we want the system to warn us if we're approaching that threshold so that we can take action to correct our course. It's about being more proactive and driving insight through analytics is a great way to do that. And in terms of that optimal decision, oftentimes we can automate the decision if if we have certain rules that are validated. We don't actually need a human in the loop. But oftentimes it's either a major decision or a decision that really requires human insight. So being able to balance off those decisions that we automate versus those that we have human involvement around to handle exceptions, that's another key attribute of these dynamic business applications. That really helps us improve our efficiency but also act with confidence. So in terms of driving better business decisions, Dan will show you this in a second, but we have some great examples of dashboards here. Surfacing content analytics, process analytics, also business analytics, telling us, when recent activities occurred, regions where they occur. This is an example of a car insurance application, so we want to know what types of policies our customers have. So having all that information available and presented allows us to really take action from the insight provided by those analytics. And another key here is around leveraging big data. This is an example of an insurance application. We're leveraging telematics information, which is really monitoring things like acceleration and braking, cornering, the speed of the vehicle, to make a decision in real time around the risk portfolio of a given insurance applicant. We can actually adjust people's insurance rates in real time based on information that's coming from sources like EMC's Greenplum, a very high-performance database for dealing with large volumes of information like telematics. So it's really important that you have the ability to connect with these enterprise information sources of analytics, whether that's Documentum XCP, but it could also be a variety of other systems, and be able to bring those together in one spot to improve decision making.
Yeah, you're really hitting on reinforcing two of the topics that you touched on earlier. First of all, getting things in context, as well as getting things from wherever it resides, whether it's analytics that are happening within your Documentum application or analytics happening without. So getting all that external and internal information in together in context, you make that right decision. That's intelligence.
Absolutely. A very good point, Dan, and thanks for reinforcing that. And in terms of better analytics, this is where you can start having intelligent knowledge cartridges, where you can actually start binning information or binning together a series of policies or patterns that are relevant to a vertical industry, to a particular problem set. There's a lot that can be done to really package up this knowledge and make it useful to a variety of workers out of the box. And having even smarter case behaviors, this whole notion of managing all the information together in one spot so people don't have to search for it, and then being able to trigger various events that occur, and doing that in a very smart way. That's obviously what we're driving towards here in terms of increased intelligence. In terms of a good example, the city of Sacramento is basically done a lot to try and improve their intelligence. They had a variety of public record requests that were coming in, legislative document reviews that needed to take place. And they really wanted to decide, hey, we can't possibly handle the entire volume of these requests. So how do we prioritize them? How do we understand which ones require, human interaction, human involvement right away? And, how can we actually prioritize those decisions to really benefit constituents in the best way possible and have the best outcome? So after implementing their Documentum XCP-based system, they had a great payback period of 21 months, 50% return on their initial investment with more cost savings every day. They were able to save 37,000 hours that they can reallocate their employees to better serve their citizens. And not only is this resulted in a lot of cost savings, but now they're actually prioritizing, which documents they're going to look at, in what order, to make sure they're maximizing the impact they have on their constituents. So I think it's really an important example of how improving intelligence can really improve your business metrics as well. So at this point, I'm going to transition over to Dan to show you an example of intelligence in action.
We're going to look at an onboarding application. So Reliable Insurance has just opened up offices in Vienna, Austria, and Lena Gruber has applied for a policy. She did this by filling out an application online and submitting that. And what we're doing now is logging into this insurance application as an agent who will work on her case. You can see he's got a lot of information when he logs into the system. He can see things that he needs to, like how well is he performing right now? Is he bringing on as many customers as the other average agents? What sorts of policies is he issuing, and is he opening them quickly enough? Is he meeting his SLAs? All the other information is coming live from the system, like what's happening right now, and probably most importantly for him, what should he be working on? A list of his tasks, and he's clicked on the top one, and that is to review this application. Now, what we're looking at is a user interface built with XCP, and it's a very attractive business user interface. It is using cutting-edge technology, EXTJS, CSS for customization, and really gives a lot of great information and gives it in a very pleasing way. Here we see information that has been extracted from the form that was filled out. It's very dynamic, a Google map of the addresses that are in there. Of course, sometimes you don't want to see the information itself, but you want to go exactly to the form that was submitted. And here we'll be able to see this is the form that Lena actually filled out and submitted to the insurance company. Sometimes it's nice to be able to go to the original documents, and it's great to be able to provide that sort of information. Finally, there's structured data in here as well. The car that she typed in on her or filled out in her application was matched with the vehicle in the system. And we're going to show a great integration here, and this is with our Greenplum database. Reliable is using Greenplum to provide risk assessments on drivers, and using a combination of the driver's demographics, the place where she's living, the type of car that she's driving, and, of course, a huge live data set. They're able to provide a very accurate risk assessment on a typical driver just like her. And this risk assessment lets them price the policy accurately. So Lucas, the insurance agent, calls Lena up, talks to her on the phone, and will discuss policy options with her. And together they'll also talk about her driver history. And combined with that and her coverage and deductible levels, rules are used to figure out what the correct policy amount is, what that monthly payment will be. So Lena will talk with him. They'll agree on what they want their policy to be, reach the right decision, and he'll click that button to submit the policy. Now, of course, downstream systems will be notified. A policy will be issued. The documents themselves will be generated and sent out to her. Now, we jump forward in time a little bit, and maybe it's a couple months later, and Lena has called her agent, Lucas, and has a question about her policy. Now, Lucas needs to quickly find her record, and we're going to do that using one-box search, using full-text search. He can type anything in this customer field, a first name, a last name, a city, a car. It's going to bring them all up. And there you see there's a bunch of Grubers, and now he can use that faceted searching to quickly drill down and find the one he wants. Lena lives in Vienna. She drives a BMW. He went from a lot of results to the one he's looking for very quickly through a combination of one-box search, very easy to use, with faceting. When he looks at her customer record, very importantly, what's gone on lately. He always wants to be up to date on the most recent information on this customer. And now we'll show one more integration with Greenplum. Reliable is doing a very interesting thing with car insurance that a lot of companies are doing, which is installing devices that monitor driving habits, how you accelerate, how you brake and corner. It sends all this information, hundreds of thousands and millions of data points into a database. Greenplum is very good at analyzing this kind of database, analyzing this kind of large, data sets, big data. That information comes into this application, and Lucas can actually see how Lena is driving. And in this case, with her policy, she can actually get a rebate. So he's going to notify her, you're driving well, and we're going to give you a rebate this month. So here you'll see a preview of a document. He likes it, and he's going to actually send this out. So this will be sent out via email, and she'll get this nicely formatted email that'll tell her, you're driving very well right now. You're going to get a 20 euro discount. So here we see great information being pulled, analytics performed externally being brought in, and really giving a great customer experience. Now, one interesting thing to think about is different workers need different information out of a system. Lucas was an agent. He saw the things he had to work on and how he's doing as he's meeting his SLAs. Imagine now that an executive is logging into one of these applications. What does that person want? Well, it's going to be very different things. An executive wants to know, hey, how is my business performing to plan? How have we been doing over the last few quarters? And how many customers are we bringing in per week? Are we meeting our goals there? And finally, he might want to see, how are my individual agents doing right now? Are they signing up as many customers and issuing as many policies as they want? So it's very important that you're getting contextual information and you're getting the information that's right for your role. And, of course, on a device you like. You'll notice the executive, of course, is logged in here on his iPad because that's how he likes to consume this information. So I hope that what we've shown there is a lot of different ways that the system shows intelligence and how that helps to drive your business decisions.
Thanks again, Dan. That was a really fascinating demo. Just shows you how far we've come even in the last few years to be able to drive these more predictive and real-time decisions like the telematics stuff. It's really exciting.
In the final section, we're going to talk about agility. And to start off,
I just wanted to level set around the cost of not having agility within your business. Really, if your business isn't able to be agile, it could be costly not only in dollars, but also in terms of your missed opportunity. According to an Economist Intelligence Unit report, almost 90% of executives cite organizational agility as a key to global success. Further research cited in this report suggests that agile firms also grow revenue about 37% faster and generate about 30% higher profits than non-agile companies. So agility is key, and what we'll see as well is agility can occur any time during the development of that application, especially as IT has a conversation with the line of business as they build out this application. Requirements can be changing all the time. Someone sees the potential of the software and decides, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had this feature as well? So it's really important that you're able to accommodate the agility throughout the development process, but also when you roll out that application, how do you accommodate a new regulation? Or maybe a business user doesn't like the way the application behaves in a certain way and needs a change. Or there's a new market opportunity that you want to capitalize on. So making change can occur at any time, and you really need software that can embrace that need to change. So the value of a dynamic BPM system, we talked in our previous segment around productivity, building solutions that the business user will love and they can access from any device. We talked about intelligence, how we can actually drive better business decisions and outcomes using a variety of content, process, and business analytics. Now we're going to zoom into the agility section. Really understand how we can get solutions up and running quickly, but that we can also change at any time. So the key to increasing agility is really, it starts off with a solution developer. And this is an example of our XCP Designer tool, which Dan's actually going to show a demo of in a second. The key point to take away here is if you can model, you have a very model-based approach to building the application, it's really designed for change. This allows you to model things like relationships. Relationships can change all the time, and it's as simple as changing the wiring, if you will, between these business objects, and all kinds of secondary events and effects can take place in that application automatically. So relationships are really key. Model-based development is key. If we look at the ability to discover metadata and basically integrate with other analytics systems, it's one thing to be able to say, I'm capturing someone's address on a form and then take that address information and leverage it elsewhere in the application. It's another thing to say, I'm going to intelligently find information that's relevant and make that metadata directly on the object. So a good example here is I may not have specifically, asked let's say it's a resume, right? Let's say someone's applying for a new job. I may not have explicitly asked on the form, have you worked for EMC before? But maybe I can mine the resume, and it turns out, well, they actually did work here, 10 years ago in this specific function. I can extract that information. I can leverage it as part of the application, and it adds secondary meaning, right? It says, this person's a previous employee. Maybe we want to hire them back if they were great. Maybe we don't want to hire them back if they weren't so great, right? And that's information we didn't necessarily ask for, but we can automatically find and detect.
And one thing that's cool about the model-driven development, David, is that you just described some really powerful capabilities in the platform. And what model-driven development allows you to do is allows the developer to build applications that take advantage of those very powerful constructs and capabilities without writing tons of code. And that's a really almost magical thing to do the things that you just talked about, automatically identify the companies listed in a resume, extract them, compare them, say, to a database of companies where your employees have worked, and do something based on that. To do all that by modeling that behavior and not having to write a bunch of code, that is agility. That's implementing a solution very quickly, and that's what's fantastic here.
Yeah, and that's a really excellent point. That's actually what I wanted to emphasize on this particular slide, because I think model-driven development is one thing, but if you got to write code to change that model, it's not that agile. So composition and flexibly composing your user interface, your business process, any forms that you interact, and capture information with people, being able to do that without code is the key to agility. And that's exactly what this XCP designer environment has been designed to do. And this is an example, right? Everything's drag and drop, right? You've got the ability to lay out a brand new user experience. You're able to, again, make the connections you need to make with that back-end data. And you're able to do this in a way that not a single line of code needs to be written. So that it's really easy. If there's a new relationship, if there's a new system you have to integrate with, if there's a new UI exposure, you don't actually have to change any code to do that. So, flexible composition is very key. And the other key is data services and sort of having a very data-driven approach. Not all applications are the same, right? A lot of them are very much data-driven. And if we're sourcing that information from a variety of enterprise systems, we want direct connections to those systems, but we don't necessarily want to have to code them. So being able to say, what information do I actually need for my customer relationship management system, or my ERP system, or my database of customer data? How do I actually make a mapping between the information and the application, as opposed to having to code these things? The infrastructure here, XCP Designer, can actually create those web services links for you automatically in the background, right? So it's not like you're actually having to code those interactions, assuming the system that you're dealing with is a web services-based interface.
No, that's right, absolutely.
So we talked about modeling complex business processes as well. I mean, model-driven development, the key to agility, we think, is around this dynamic business process, that you actually extract information and you do that as steps within a business process. And therefore, if your integration point changes, it's as simple as rewiring that step in the process as opposed to having to recode your entire application. So, another key to agility, we think, revolves around the business process itself. So the other thing around getting users up and running quickly, there are several options, but generally cloud-based deployment is becoming increasingly popular. The quickest path to success is really to do this in a hosted environment. We have our own offering we call EMC On Demand. Really can deploy these applications in a matter of weeks, as opposed to months or years, which a lot of traditional applications might take. It also means that it's maintained by internal experts who understand how the software is supposed to work. You don't need your own IT team to support, stand up, and maintain these applications. So that's certainly one option to getting users up and running quickly. The other is the fact that we've really optimized our software for the private cloud. So even if you're deploying in your own data center or even in a third-party data center, we have the ability to automate the provisioning of your particular application into that data center. It's almost like having a script, right? Having a blueprint that describes how the software should be installed. And it's not necessarily just the XCP software, for example, but it could also mean, the database, the supporting infrastructure around that, the document and platform. Any upgrades or maintenance that you do can also be automated. So there's a lot of huge advantages to taking this more of an automated deployment approach to get users up and running and minimize that downtime.
I love what you've done with this slide here, David, because when we talk about agility, people do tend to think about development, and your previous slide did show some great advances that we've done in terms of development. But when you look at an implementation of a large IT project, development is only one component, and there's often a hurdle where it takes people the time it takes to, first of all, acquire hardware to get that purchase order through the system and get the hardware required and implemented, operating systems installed. That can add months onto a project. And whether or not you think of that as agile, as an agile development, it certainly affects your agility as a business. How quickly can you get an application up and running? So this is a really important component.
Yeah, it really, really is, Dan. And I appreciate your insight around that, because you're right. It's the whole package. It's building it quickly, it's deploying it quickly, it's changing it quickly, right? And those are the three elements in agility. And speaking of which, when it comes to change, if there's one thing that's constant in business today, it's change. And new regulations are constantly being introduced. New requirements are coming in. New business models emerge. So even corporate events like a merger or acquisition can cause the need to consolidate multiple solutions together. The same really holds true for any solution you deploy. At some point, change is going to be necessary, and whether that's changing the business process, the look and feel of the user experience, or the integrations with those business systems that we talked about that really source your information, you need to be able to do that, right? And you need to be able to do that in an easy way. So minimizing the amount of code you have to write by using a composition-based environment, and being able to change any aspects of the solution quickly and easily is a real key. As an example here of a customer, we have UVIT, who's in the insurance sector. And they've really had a very manual, paper-based insurance onboarding process. Supporting materials were not easily available. They had lengthy claims processing times. They were missing a lot of their regulatory requirements, or at least that were legislated in Dutch law, because they are based in the Netherlands. And so their goal was to really create a new application that required no custom development. And that was a big thing in the insurance space for them. So after deploying XCP, it turns out 98% of their application was built through composition and configuration. They were able to build that application 50% faster than they initially estimated. And that's a wild amount of savings right out of the gate. Plus, it gives them the agility moving forward to change the app, because regulations in the insurance industry are constantly changing. They're able to reduce their claims processing times by up to 10%. They're able to handle up to 50 million claims a year now, so increasing their volume of claims because of the efficiency they've gained. And they're fully adherent to the archive law in the Netherlands, this legislation that they need to actually preserve and retain every insurance claim that they've dealt with for a certain period of time, and be able to provide that as evidence should they ever need to in a court. So they've got a lot of benefits because of the increased agility that XCP provides. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition over to Dan to show us an example of a demo in XCP around agility.
Thanks, David. And what we're going to show here is our XCP Designer, the tool that's used to build these applications. And we're going to show how you can integrate with some external systems. In this case, some external EMC systems, the Doc Sciences server and a Greenplum server. And I'm showing here a couple of endpoints. We model endpoints that have the address for those servers. And I'm going to go into a business process here. And as part of this business process, we want to get data out of the Greenplum database. We can write a SQL-like query here, and quickly can validate that works. Similarly, we have another process here that communicates with a expression, Doc Science's expression product. And here I can see that we're going to be generating a document mapping some data from our application into expression. So with Greenplum, we're fetching some data out. With expression, we're sending some data in order to create a document. So modeling these activities is very simple, but what I want to show is how I can use this in my application. So here we see a customer screen where I'd like to display data from that Greenplum database. And in this case, it's an insurance application. I want to share how or display how they've been driving with some analysis that's done on their telematic information. So on my page, I've dragged in an area, and I'm going to go add a data service. I've got a stateless process, the one that I was modeling that has the integration with Greenplum. Put that data service on my page, and now I'll add a results list where I can show the outputs. I'll get that customer driver details. I'm wiring the grid there to my data service. And then I'll do some CSS and HTML formatting to turn those numbers that are coming back from Greenplum into some great-looking graphics. And now I want to invoke this data service when a user clicks a button. So I'm going to add some column boxes so I can make things look nice. And I'll drop a button onto the page. And then I'm going to wire that to fire that data service. What you're seeing here is some really impressive stuff. There's drag and drop, and drag and drop is something we're kind of used to with UI. But we're also modeling the invocation of an external, query of an external system. We did all this with writing no code, and now we're wiring that button to invoke that. So what we're doing there it might have taken hours if we were doing it in code, and whether it took hours or not, it's something that might be difficult if another developer had to come in and debug it. But by doing things through configuration and composition, we don't have to worry about the difficulties of code. And now we can see what this looks like. We've got the results coming back from Greenplum. We've got a button here that will invoke the expression integration, and when you click that button, it generates a nicely formatted email and a nicely formatted document. So we saw very, very quickly how the system allows you to build this application through composition. And when you're building through composition, you're doing it so much more quickly. It means that you end up with a much more agile organization.
That's really amazing, Dan. And to me, I think a lot of people think that big data isn't really accessible, right? They might have volumes of information in their business, but it doesn't seem like it's easy to connect with. And it was just really cool to see how in one tool, you can not only build the user experience, but you can easily connect to that enterprise source of big data, in this case, the Greenplum database, and really leverage it in a real-world scenario. So thank you again for showing us that.
You're welcome.
So hopefully you've enjoyed our series describing how you can take dynamic business process management applications, combine them with better analytics and big data, and ultimately drive to better business decisions. We appreciate your time, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.